Andrew, welcome to the Natural Resilience podcast. Thanks very much for giving up your time to join us.
Nice one, thanks for having me, Ciaran.
So it's March, Six Nations is coming to an end. We'll not talk about specific games, but I think it's a great angle to go into and speak about your career in rugby. And if we maybe go back to your younger days when you were playing, because I picked up in an interview before where a coach in your amateur days had advised you just to focus on a couple of simple things that you were extremely good at, focusing on that. If you could maybe go into that a bit for us.
Yeah, so tracking my rugby career and my level of performance, like anybody, it's a little bit turbulent. There's a few injuries, there's some form, there's some, crisis moments, and then there's some kind of big moments. And the pattern for me was kind of kicking on, coming through. Everything was very linear and straightforward. When you're a youngster, everything, you're completely undaunted by everything. Your naivety kind of saves you, I suppose, from being, you're going out and playing rugby and, just getting the ball and not thinking about it too much, but you've got a natural athleticism and, power output and, speed, all that sort of stuff. All happens very naturally, and you don't realise how good you have it until you get to, I remember I got to 24 caps, and I remember I turned 24, and I had this thought. I'd been out of the environment, out of kind of, a bit of a purple patch, hadn't been picked for a while, been in a couple of squads thereabouts, but not really getting much joy, hadn't played for Ireland in 12 months or something. And I did wonder, the mind games that don't happen when you're in your early 20s.
Okay.
They started kicking in. And that's like the maturity, but then also the kind of baggage that comes with, maturing as a performer. And I remember thinking, I wonder if my caps will ever overtake my age again. Wow. Which is a stupid thing to think about, but I did sort of think, right, I need to reestablish, how to get back to that level of performance, or back to, fulfill my potential. And took me a while. I had to go back to basics, strip everything back, and that's whenever it was the video analyst at Ireland at the time. I was very close to him, and he intimately knew his rugby, and his thing was, right, get back to basics and do, because you can do that better than anyone whenever you're kind of really consistent with it. So a couple of years later, Ireland were playing Wales at the Millennium Stadium. It was back then. And Craig Gilroy was playing on the left, or on the right, and Simon Zebo was on the left. And if anybody remembers this, someone put a pass behind Simon Zebo's, so talented. He can do stuff that very few other wingers can do out there. Someone chucked a pass, like, generally anywhere near Zebo. Ball was dropping actually towards his knees, and he did a couple of keepy-ups.
I remember it was like a flick almost.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. Like, nobody can do that apart from Zebo. He just calmly, he's so talented, just flicked the ball up, tapped it a couple times with his foot, and then it just popped into his bread basket. And I just said to myself, if that's what it takes to play in the wing for Ireland, I will never play in the wing for Ireland ever again. This guy is next level. And so sat down with Mervyn Murphy's the name of the guy, the video analyst, and again, he just was very, very sensible, very level-headed. He said, okay, acknowledge that's not going to be your game. You're not going to be all about flair moments and X factor. You're going to be about basics, being really, really consistent, just being so reliable, making good decisions, looking after the ball. And I thought, well, all of those things I can do well, and if I really focus on them, I can do them better than anyone, and just get to that level of consistency and contribute value to the team in a way that's just different. And so I did that. He simplified that approach, and then that coincided with the arrival of Joe Schmidt, who doubled down on that approach for me and really made me realize, okay, I can be really effective and really valuable to this team if I perform like that and be the most consistent performer. And I got to new levels of execution and performance that I never had been before, just because I was so focused and so so it's kind of simplistic in how I approached it, and that was really valuable to me. And definitely there's applications everywhere else in terms of business or whatever, but that for me, it was just an approach that I stumbled across that got the best out of me. And it took me, I was 22 28, 29 before I really peaked and really felt like I fulfilled my potential. You know, that's a 9-year build up.
Wow.
To finally feeling like, okay, now I'm thriving. I feel so comfortable in this environment, and I go onto the pitch knowing I'm going to perform well. It took me 9 years to work out what made me tick, and that was with the help of a lot of other people. So, yeah, big moment for me. And then that was the explanation or the pattern of my career, just peaking late, and then that coincided with, you know, some amazing memories of mine and accomplishments of 2014 Six Nations. I was Ireland's Player of the Year that year. A couple of years later, we went to South Africa, beat South Africa for the first time. We were 14 men, beat them in Cape Town, and then we beat that historic moment in Chicago. We beat the All Blacks for the first time in Irish rugby history. So managed to be a part of a couple of those. And although I'd been, you know, in my early 20s, kind of just ponied up and turned, you know, performed okay at times, but I was always a passenger in a team's performance and, you know, Triple Crown wins. But being a part of those was very special to me because I was driving that performance, and I was, you know, really at the center of us accomplishing those things. So it was, yeah, very special to get there and feel like I'd fulfilled potential.
It's phenomenal coaching, and it's also phenomenal self-awareness to be able to identify what your strengths were, and then to commit to like really focusing on those. And I think in today's society, people focus on the flair, you know, from business, whether it's I want to have the fancy marketing, or, you know, I want to be the skillful one in sports. But I love how you were able to identify what you were extremely strong at and then make that work for you, and to really have those highs. I mean, beating the All Blacks in Chicago, I'm sure that was just like a phenomenal experience. But what really struck me about that as you were speaking there is the fact that you so confidently said, I fulfilled my potential. Like that must... I suppose that probably played a big part in your smooth transition from rugby then when you decided to retire from playing.
I reckon it probably plays a big part in the rest of my life. And I know a lot of guys, when they finish, you know, the sport, you don't just, you know, play professional sport for 10 years, 12 years. Your whole life is, you know, I was a rugby fan, you know, went to watch Ulster win the European Cup in '99. My dad brought me down to the rugby club. I was immersed in rugby growing up. So everything about me was, you know, even my young fellas suffering from the same fate. You know, what do you want to be when you're older? A rugby player and this kind of stuff. But that was all I wanted to do. And then the problem with that is whenever you finish that, then, you know, if all you wanted to be is a rugby player and then all you are is a rugby player, and then, you know, the epitome of that is, you know, being an Ireland player, being an Ulster player, then once that's gone, then what's your identity? Yeah. And my thing was always, well, in hindsight, my thing was the fact that I feel like I fulfilled my potential. I feel like I got some success at the end of my career. Had I not got that, I may have felt like there was a little bit of unfinished business, or maybe someone who gets an injury halfway through their career doesn't get to really fulfill that, and that's snatched away from them, or through one reason or another, they still want to be there. They feel like they still have something to accomplish in that. I was very lucky, and that allowed me, you know, the psychology behind that, just to feel like, okay, that's part of my life that's done. And now I'm really excited about something else, a new project, something to get my teeth into, and kind of maintain the same focus, but in a different direction, different world, different exposure. We can talk about that. You know, it's really interesting, kind of one environment, coming out of that and plugging yourself into another environment and realizing there's a whole nother world that exists that I haven't had exposure to. But I can do that knowing that I can park that part of my life. Don't have to get beaten up at the weekend anymore. Don't have to be away from home over Six Nations or whatever it is. Yeah. Now I can get on with something else. Now it's equally, if not more, dedication to a startup business and everything that comes with that. But it just felt good. It felt easy for me to park that, and I was excited about life after rugby. Then you know, I know there are a lot of guys who are daunted by life after rugby, or going, well, this is all I've known. How do I do something different?
I think it's a very healthy mindset. And I think a lot of people struggle with that identity crisis when something that they perceive defines them, and they're attached to that identity, and then that identity is no longer. Before we kind of talk about what you transitioned into, I suppose, that's maybe the fairy tale of I focused on my strengths. I had some huge experiences and wins, but I'm assuming there's also a lot of sacrifice as well throughout those 9 years, from time and relationships and dedication and discipline.
Mm-hmm.
How did that manifest? Like, kind of probably the other side that maybe only the players are aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a topic that my wife would probably be better contributing to. She'd have a few things to say about it, but I'll give you what I would imagine she would say. So yeah, there's the practical stuff, missing out on events, missing out on holidays, having kind of last minute stuff, or right, okay, you've got 10 days, get away, and this, you don't have the kind of freedom that to me still feels like a novelty. You can say that's going to be, the kids are off school there, let's plan something, let's do something class and something fun and make some memories. And yeah, all of that, a lot of that is just stifled. Some of it's practical, some of it makes things difficult, some of it's more expensive, all that sort of stuff. But probably what overrides all of that is I think there's an element of you're institutionalized in professional rugby. I don't want to speak on behalf of any other sports or high performance environments, but you're institutionalized. You go in, you get told what to wear, you're given a timetable, you're told where to park, where to what room to be in, what to eat, what you're going to have to execute on the pitch. You become incredibly good at that, following orders and doing what you're told, and I think it stifles. I think that environment, there's huge positives from that. I met some amazing people, saw some amazing parts of the world, got some amazing memories. It's a net gain, absolutely a net gain. Okay. But the downside is I think that environment can stifle someone's creativity and stifle their ability to kind of think outside of the box, or just be something that, maybe that environment dictates you to be otherwise. And I think that I find that a little bit difficult. My wife would say I'm a very different person now, having gone out of it and having more exposure and just stimulated different parts of me and my creativity and my I don't know how else to describe that, but I talk to her better. I talk better. I have more to say for myself. I think I'm more interesting. And she would have said that previously I would have been just a little stunted, a little bit, okay. All I'm worried about is the game of the weekend.
Yeah.
All I'm worried about is training well tomorrow to make sure that I'm selected for the game of the weekend. All I'm worried about is recovering from this injury. It's so all-encompassing, which is a really, it's healthy in a lot of ways.
Is it necessary?
I felt like it was necessary for me. Now, I studied and did other things. I had a lot of friends outside of rugby as well, so I did everything I could to broaden that exposure. But that level of focus, it's so competitive nowadays. If you haven't got that level of focus, then someone's going to take your place, or someone's going to get the success that you feel like you should have. So that was what I experienced, and yeah, my wife would kind of attest to that. There's an element of, okay, you can relax and be yourself once you get out of it. And you expose yourself to the real world.
Yeah.
There's something about that environment, that professional environment, surrounded by same types of people, grew up playing the same sport, probably a lot of the same opinions, and that world so well, but that's only a fraction of the real world and what's actually out there.
It sounds almost quite militaristic.
A little bit, yeah. I'm probably hamming this up a little bit, to be fair.
I can see how it works for, I'm assuming, quite alpha characters. 30 of them, young men, all vying for a position, for a slot, for their voice to be heard. How? I mean, I'm assuming there needs to be an element of control. Was there ever a period where heads were butting and like it became almost a toxic environment? Not within Ireland or Ulster, but I'm assuming that can happen if
that definitely. I wouldn't say. I'd say there's unhealthy elements of it, but there's also elements of that environment where the crack is 100 miles an hour. constantly. No other workplace or environment are you going to have that much fun. You're with your mates, you end up being unbelievably thick-skinned. You just spend the whole day slagging each other, winding each other up. People are playing pranks on each other. There's in-jokes that only we get. You know, you end up being part of this completely exclusive club that it's us and we're one team and we're all fighting to be successful together and competitive together as well. So there's elements of that that are completely unique and exciting and fun, and it's an amazing way to live your life, I suppose. Not a lot of people get to do that. But that focus and that dedication comes at a cost, and I think it stifles a little bit of creativity, or it stifles a little bit of an appreciation of the perspective and the big wide world and what's going on out there. And I don't think I realized this at the time, but when I came out of this and then just kind of got plugged into this network of entrepreneurs, designers, software engineers, investors, and that startup world is just fascinating. There's so many brilliant people, so many creative people, so many different types of people. And life is a lot richer than it is when you're in the changing room surrounded by the same type of people. So hopefully I'm getting a bit of balance there. There's unhealthy elements of it, but it's also an amazing way to, even just for discipline, and then reapplying that discipline and focus to a different project and understanding kind of how effective that can be.
I've heard someone describe it before, where to be an elite performer in any field, it's all about the arc of focus, and the more, I suppose, narrow you can focus, the more impact you can have. And then, of course, when you retire from that field, the periphery vision opens up again, and you can be creative, and you see, your algorithm, I suppose, increases. Once you then transitioned into the startup world and the tech world and having to learn all those new skills again, did you feel as if that periphery vision has started narrowing again to allow you to focus and be intentful with your energy?
In terms of looking at the market and being strategic around that, any kind of product development principles will be, okay, solve one problem and go narrow and deep with it. But in terms of your exposure day to day and the people you meet, it's really important to keep that wide. Even just to consider, I suppose, what the accidental training that I felt like I had every week of a professional rugby player. Every week you're either fit or you're injured. You're either selected or you're dropped. You're either performing well or you're performing badly. And all of this is public facing. Everybody finds out everything about you. So it's grueling, and it's soul searching, and it's tricky, and it's there's moments where you're going out 1 minute you're here, another minute it's a mountaintop moment, and I think that accidentally develops this level of resilience in people. I think you end up accidentally preparing yourself for being an entrepreneur, getting into business, and even look at rugby, how rugby changes. Like literally, the sport changes, the rules change in the game. Like a number of years ago, they changed the number of subs you could have. Recently there's like innovations in the game where people just like strategically change how they do it. So players change position. I changed position when I was 22. Had to learn a new skill set. That is effectively business and a changing marketplace, and ultimately reacting to that changing marketplace and finding a solution that adds value. So there's a lot of ways that environment prepares you for that. Having said that, I finished at 33. Other people are going into graduate programs at the age of 21, and they're 12 years ahead of me where I was. In terms of their skill, their specific skills, like even just I didn't know how to raise an investment round. I didn't know how to speak to an investor. Didn't know how to pitch a business. Didn't know how to sell a product. Didn't know how to build a product. Didn't know how to manage a team. Hadn't a clue. Hadn't a notion. And had I known how far out of my depth I was, I probably wouldn't have took on such a big challenge. So again, similar to when I was young playing rugby, my naivety helped me, just not being aware of what I didn't know. But also having confidence to know that, okay, I've been able to react and re-engineer what makes me tick as a player. I've developed all these skills that, now I've got enough confidence to say, I don't know how to do that today, but I know I'll be able to do that in a couple of months' time.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Whatever that is, I know I'm going to be able to get on top of that.
I love how you have taken confidence from growing from challenges throughout your career and then apply them. I suppose it's maybe a great opportunity to go in to the origin story of your business and what your inspiration was for that. And if the inspiration came as like towards the end of your career, or was it solely after?
It's no, it was towards the end of my career. I started getting quite fussy about my routine and my preparation, and thinking about, right, what makes me tick. I probably started overthinking this a little bit as well, but I started thinking, right, well, when do I feel good in the pitch? I feel good whenever, even if you kind of treat your preparation and then your execution as like a piece of software, right? What are the problems that are any product development? What are the problems I'm going to encounter on game day? And how do I solve those problems in my prep? Because I think there's a lot of sports psychology where the psychologist, tricks you into feeling good about yourself. It's all about body language, and some of that works. But what I wanted to do was, how do I remind myself that I'm well prepared? So it's more of a rational thing, right? I'm actually going to solve these problems. So high ball reception, do some footwork, make sure I know the game plan intimately. So 4 or 5 things, and then my gym work and nutrition, sleep, and all that sort of stuff. I remember thinking, right, if I nail everything in this list, this is my magic formula. If I do all this, rather than being nervous on game day, I'm going to walk out confidently knowing that I'm going to execute. That's a powerful place to find yourself. And then, multiply that by 15, us as a team, we're going to walk out knowing that we're going to execute here. So I find that difficult to do because our communication methods within the team were primitive. We had whiteboards, multiple WhatsApp groups, we had emails, PDFs, written strength and conditioning programs. And I was going, well, everything's kind of disparate. Everything's all over the place. Like your typical high-performance athlete wants focus. So why don't we bring all that information into one app and allow the athlete, don't give them excuses. Allow them to say, right, I know exactly what I got to do. I know exactly what I have to execute, and bring that all into one app and make it easy for them. So that's what we wanted to achieve. A number of pivots along the way, a number of kind of pragmatic decisions along the way, and we finally we launched the business whenever I finished. We spent a little bit of time kind of doing discovery and speaking to other rugby teams, other football teams, and finding out is this a wider problem? And it absolutely was. There's plenty of kind of teams operating and with processes that the result of them is their players operate with a lack of focus. So how do we improve that? Right, let's look at what we can do, and ultimately we were able to get something to market that solved a lot of those problems within a couple of years. And I remember one of the first teams we got, Forest Green Rovers, one of the first football teams started using our system. Cambridge United. I remember just thinking, and then Manchester United Academy was one of the. We told people it was Manchester United.
Yeah,
as you can imagine,
you're not lying. Yeah.
So anyway, I just remember starting to get some feedback and thinking, wow, this is so cool. We had a team of 8 or 10 people in Belfast at the time, really sharp, really clever engineers building a product that was pretty compelling, and fundamentally changing how football teams, rugby teams operated day to day. So that was an exciting place to be.
I can only imagine the excitement, but also that's a really quick journey from inception to a team of 8 or 9. And like
I fast forwarded that a bit, to be fair.
Yeah, but I'm just was investment in there? I mean, that I'm assuming that was a steep learning curve for you.
Yeah,
with everything's new.
Absolutely.
Again.
Yeah, even pitching to investors. Presenting decks, financials. We got a lot of support, and in Belfast there's a huge kind of ecosystem of support, support network there, investors, mentors. We did a couple of accelerators at the time as well, where you're kind of brought in, exposed to different people who will be able to help you out and give you advice in all these different areas. And that's, I work occasionally with a couple of businesses now, or take calls or chat to people about their startup ideas or concepts. And I love that because that's the help that we got, and it's kind of really important to stay in that environment and hopefully contribute back some value there.
I love that. I love the fact that you're giving back. And as a startup myself, I think Belfast is a really exciting place to be in terms of the ecosystems, from Ormo Baths to here and the Innovation Factory and Catalyst. And it seems to be, I suppose, Belfast going back decades, it was always in the news for the wrong reasons. And now it's about innovation and entrepreneurship and these young, exceptionally talented and smart people building world-class products. It's really, really exciting. So I suppose going to the present moment, I mean, your product significantly scaled, and you had some big news in last year. Was it 2024?
Yeah, so Christmas 2024, and there had been a number of conversations up until that, but there's a group called Teamworks from North Carolina, Durham in North Carolina, and they did very similar thing to what we were doing in some of the football teams and rugby teams in the UK, in the colleges, and then North America pro teams as well. And they probably ended up, we had half the Premier League using our system and half the Premier League using Teamwork's system. We were called Kairos at the time. And so we had a couple of chats with them around, right, how do we join forces here? And we started to meet a few of the guys within Teamworks, and they started maybe to appreciate that we were pretty valuable, and we started really appreciating what their vision was and where they were looking to go. The big difference between Teamworks and us was we sold a point solution. We sold one solution that solves really one problem or a niche set of problems. Our app did scheduling, messaging, file sharing, data collection. I always say data collection, but probably it wasn't really. It was kind of primitive enough. But added value, again, narrow and deep, added a lot of value in that space. So operations, team operations, they're able to manage that and travel and stuff like that. So now Teamworks, we were able to have a chat with them around, their athlete management systems, their performance solutions. They're launching a strength and conditioning programming solution, nutrition, recruitment, all of these other things, all speaking as part of one operating system for sport. We call it with Teamworks. And whenever we heard that vision, we were like, well, it's, we're going to lose something because we've got the vibrancy of, 10 of us. It's us against the world in Belfast. That's an exciting time. Yeah. But we're replacing that with, right, this is a really cool vision. How can we, rather than just adding one solution to one department in one sports team, how can we just completely transform how everybody in the sports team operate and bring it all together so everybody's on one page, and we know everybody understands the benefits of multiple departments overlapping and contributing in a multidisciplinary way. And that seems like a really healthy environment, holistic for the athlete as well, to be exposed to that. And it's exciting from a business perspective. So we really liked the people at Teamworks, and we really liked their vision and that project, and we're really excited to be a part of that now. So we rolled over, our team rolled over. We moved everybody from Kairos onto Teamworks software, and it was reasonably smooth. That project's never going to be 100% easy, but it was reasonably smooth. And now you're talking about Belfast. A lot of our staff from Belfast, made a couple of guys across the water as well. They're all really valuable to Teamworks now and really appreciate it. And it feels like we've kind of put Belfast on the map as well.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of young apprentices in Belfast, and they've doubled down on that. We've got a dedicated office at Ormo Baths, and there's a lot of young, talented engineers in particular in Belfast doing really well. And it feels like, this American company, we've shone a light on how much talent and how much ability there is in Belfast, and that's, something we're really proud of as well.
I love how throughout that you used the word vision several times in terms of being emotionally attached to their vision. You also mentioned kind of coming up towards the tail end of your career where communication was primitive and you wanted to improve on that. How do you articulate that vision then to your team, like improving on, I suppose, the primitive aspects that you were maybe open to?
The sports team you're talking about?
Your team in Belfast here. So you've bought into Teamworks vision and their greater vision and how that has a positive impact on the athlete. How were you able to articulate that to your team at Kairos in terms of like getting them to emotionally buy into it as well?
Yeah, so it was probably a little bit tricky at the start because we had our whole thing was we're David and they're Goliath. Our big thing was, right, how do we, the benefits of a small group is you can be agile, you can be responsive, you can call, sports teams can call key decision makers and we can get stuff rolled out tomorrow. So that's how we positioned ourselves. And it was like we were all drinking the Kool-Aid, we were all in that vision and all excited about that. So for us then to turn around and say, okay, that was cool, that was then, and this is now, here's something bigger. So it did take a few conversations, and we did need to kind of undo some of the propaganda. And there's emotion attached to that as well, because everybody's, it's more than just a job at that stage. When you're a small group like that, doing something as fun and as exciting as that was, it does take a little bit of time to kind of shift mindsets. But generally, one or two, it wasn't for them. But most of our team were eventually, after a number of conversations, really excited about being part of that Teamworks project and that vision. And ultimately, we could see it, and they had a lot of trust in us as well. The reason why they were bought into the Kairos project is because we were so excited about it, and that excitement kind of rubbed off. Once we became excited about the Teamworks vision, that a lot of guys moved across and became very excited as well. So they've all done really well. So it's kind of rubber stamped, and that I suppose the ability that they have, how talented some people are in Belfast, and then these guys in particular have been very valuable to Teamworks in that bigger project.
The obvious question, Andrew, is what aspects of mindset or your own behaviour were transferable from rugby into that scaling and startup world?
I think that level of dedication. So, and there's so many things. Yeah, you design as much as you can. You're thoughtful about as many things as you can, but sometimes you're lucky. And I think I was very lucky that Garth and myself were working this. Garth Quinn, another kind of entrepreneur in Belfast, been working on a couple of consultancy capacity with a couple of businesses, set up Digital DNA, which is an event in Belfast. So he was plugged into a tech network. He understood how things worked, and he kind of took me under his wing a little bit. I knew I had domain expertise. I understood how high-performing sports teams worked, how they operated, how they communicated, and all the deficiencies within that. Garth just knew that bigger picture, and he was able to direct me, and he's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi kind of figure, kind of direct me in the right way. I knew that ultimately, whenever I was exposed to all these different elements, that I would be able to thrive, and we complement each other very well. So the fact that I was able to bring that domain expertise and kind of the confidence and understanding around that, Garth was able to chip off the kind of fine tune, I suppose, what I was contributing to that. And then there's an element of Garth's an absolute machine. His workload is through the roof. He's so productive. He's so efficient with his time. And whenever he's fired up about something, he gets it done, and he finds ways to mobilize the team around him and leverage them and ultimately get on top of whatever it is he's fired up about at the time. So the two of us complement each other really well, and that's just luck. Sometimes partnerships don't work out for one reason or another, or there might be a clash, or there might be egos there. We both really understood, and that was part of kind of what drove us and what allowed us to be successful in the end.
You've been exposed to so much in that startup environment quite quickly. Now you're kind of mentoring and the voice of reason for local startups, and the startup scene here is huge. It's great. It's vibrant. Mm-hmm. Obviously, your advice is generic, but for somebody that's maybe in a startup position that's listening, and it can be all-consuming. We spoke about this all off camera in terms of it takes up a lot of your thought processes, it's your time. What general advice would you give to somebody that's maybe starting off with an idea they're passionate about and really wants to make an impact in the world?
I suppose the initial acknowledgement that you might be good at 2 or 3 things, but you'll not be good at everything. You'll not be good enough at everything. So myself and Gareth, between the two of us, because we complemented each other, we covered a lot of bases. But there's always going to be some blind spots. You're not going to be able to cover everything or be an expert in everything. And that's when we brought in, guys who were really committed to what we were doing, investors, mentors, non-executive directors as well, a couple of local people who really cared about us, cared about the business, and just to be pragmatic, they had a financial interest in the business as well because they were investors. And they were able to help us. Neither of us were technical, myself and Gareth. That was a huge blind spot. We brought in some technical expertise to help us recruit. We ended up recruiting really well. As I was talking about the engineers and the quality, it was there. I think acknowledging blind spots and then plugging those holes with people who know better than us.
Love that. Love that team ethos of, I suppose, it's you can only go as far as your team, really. Mm-hmm. And I suppose you've seen that in rugby and with the business.
Yeah, and you can grow into it. Like, there's definitely elements of I couldn't contribute and add value in that space, but I will be able to in a year's time or 18 months' time, and then that's fine, that's great. But there's definitely elements on parts of your business where that's not my thing. I'm not passionate about that. I don't understand it. I've got a mountain to climb to get. So that's whenever you need help. And there's so many people that want to help.
Yeah.
And so many genuine people in our experience in Belfast or in Ireland generally. That was almost a sales strategy for us at one stage. Just, there's Irish practitioners, S&C coaches, all around the world in football teams, rugby teams, American sports as well. That was like nearly our strategy, our sales strategy. Find one of them.
Yeah,
like scrolling through LinkedIn looking for an Irish name.
It's a massively untapped resource. The Irish diaspora is literally in every corner of the world and want to help. Mm-hmm. There's talk about the invisible umbilical cord to home.
Yeah,
people like the diaspora that have made it, went to the States or Canada, wherever it may be, they always want to see people do well. I think
they do, and they're interested in home, especially, and there is what's going on back there. And actually, we secured some significant investment from a couple of guys from Northern Ireland who were working over in the States and had been over there for 10, 15 years, were well settled. But we did a few events and publications with Invest NI. They read the newsletter, found out about us, got in touch. They were interested in what we're doing. And they want, like, a lot of these guys, want to see a return on an investment. But like for like, they want to see a return on an Irish company or a Northern Irish company.
Love that.
Yeah.
So just to finish then, Andrew, what's the vision then for going forward the next 3 to 5 years for you?
Yeah, so I don't know how long this project with Teamworks is going to take. It's still exciting. We're still bullish about where Teamworks is going. There might be a couple more acquisitions so we can kind of broaden the offering from Teamworks. But it's compelling and it's all encompassing at the minute. And it's an exciting place to be. I mentioned, the project's exciting. The people are brilliant as well. We did a leadership retreat to Catalina Island off the coast of LA last June. At a military retreat. We were hiking and kayaking and camping and doing leadership events and stuff. It was amazing, and the brilliant thing about it was, really spending some quality time with all the other kind of leaders within the company. And there are absolutely brilliant people in that company, really creative, really thoughtful, really smart. And if they're the ones that kind of decide the direction this company goes, then I want to be part of that and expose myself to them as much as possible. So we don't know when this the Teamworks thing is gonna end, or whenever our part is gonna end. For me, I've still got a little bit of still a rugby fan. I went from being a player to a rugby fan like that overnight as soon as I retired, and do a bit of punditry, do a bit of commentating. If I was sitting at home watching a rugby match, I'd be chatting to myself anyway, so I may as well do it into a microphone. And still huge rugby fan, and part of me would love to find a way to be back into that environment and adding value somehow. I'm not sure what that looks like. It wouldn't be coaching, but maybe in the commercial end or something. I'd love to get back into rugby at some stage. That'd be a bit of an ambition for me.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you. I'm excited for you, both personally and professionally. You seem really content with where you are, but excited for the future, which I think is a very healthy place to be.
Yeah, no, cheers. Yeah, that's how I would describe it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Cheers, Ciaran.
Cheers. Thank
Thanks.
you.